Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hey, welcome to this week's podcast episode. We're going to talk about when your stepkid doesn't like you, how to handle feeling defeated without losing your sanity. And if this is you, like if you feel like your stepkid doesn't like you and you're struggling with them not respecting you and you just feel defeated all of the time or most of the time, I just want to start off by saying, I see you. I get it. I've been there. And here's the thing, like, as you may or may not know, my stepkids are actually out of the house now. They've been out for 5 years and 2 years. I've got a stepson and a stepdaughter, and my stepdaughter's been out of the house for 5 years. My stepson's been out of the house for a little over 2 years. And I just want to know, like, I know and I remember very vividly what it feels like when your stepkids don't respect you and you just feel defeated. Like they walk in the house and you can tell that day if things are going to go well or if things are not going to go well. Or if they come in and you're like, hey, how's it going? And they come in and roll their eyes. You already know how your day is going to go. And so it's just like, I've been trying for so long to get these guys to like me and now they don't. Or today is a weird day. I don't know what's happening. Maybe I did something. Maybe I haven't done something. Maybe they're dreading coming back here because they've been gone. I just want you to know, like, I've I've been there, and sometimes it feels like you live in an ice castle, right? Like sometimes it feels like you're Elsa, like the Ice Queen from Frozen, and you've put up all of these barricades and no one can get in, but also sometimes it feels like they've put up the barricades and no one can get in. And it's just like, oh, or maybe you feel like Maleficent just because your stepkid rolled their eyes at you like the 100th time that day, and you're just like, what's the point of even trying? But here's the thing. Today, we're going to dive into the lovely, soul crushing moment when your stepkid gives you that you're not my mom vibe and you're questioning your whole life and like all of your choices about staying here. So, first things first, let's do a little bit of like a reality check here. It's not personal, even though it seems like it is, because here's the thing. You and I could switch places. I could go to your house, and however you're treated, I'm going to be treated. How you could come to my house, and however I'm treated, you're going to be treated. And it's not because of you, it's because of the role that you play. You are the stepmom, right? Like you are the new person here. But also, let's talk about what is going on. A lot of the times, the reason why your stepchild is acting the way that they're acting is because of their own emotions. Maybe it's their own feelings about divorce. Maybe it's their own feelings about having to go back and forth between two houses. Or, you know what, honestly, it might not even have to do with blended families. It could be they had a really bad day at practice. Maybe they didn't do so well on a test. Maybe they're fighting with their friends. Maybe they're fighting with the other house. Maybe they're just having a bad day. And I think sometimes we forget that as stepmoms or as parents is that kids also can have bad days. You know, we just expect them to be happy go lucky all of the time because you always hear like kids are resilient. They're going to be, it's okay. They'll just bounce back. Forgetting that they're kids, but that doesn't mean that they don't have their own emotions or they don't have their own struggles that they're navigating too. So just know it's not personal that they rolled their eyes at you that day or, you know, they acted in a way that they did. But also, let's just talk about if you're feeling defeated, just trust me that you're not alone. Every stepmom has been there at some point. And if they haven't, they're either lying or their stepkids are unicorns. And I'm going to go with their stepkids are not unicorns. But every stepmom I've ever talked to has definitely been in this situation. I see it in coaching, I see it in my community, I see it in my DMs. Like every other stepmom that I've talked to has had those days where it's just like, why am I even here? Like my stepkids don't even like me. It doesn't matter how much I love my partner. My stepkids don't like me, and that makes it really hard. I see you. I get it. I understand. But let's now talk about like dealing with the disrespect and let's understand what's really going on. Like I said, they've got their own emotions about whatever it is. But let's look at like age appropriate things. Maybe they are testing boundaries. Maybe it's just a phase that they're going with. And like I said, maybe they're just going through like their own big emotions and they don't necessarily know how to handle them. And if you've got teenagers, sometimes the kid is just being a teenager, stepmom or not, they're going to think that you're the worst. And I think that's really hard, especially if you've got teenagers in the house, because you think, oh, they're pulling away because they hate me. It's because I'm the stepmom. And it's not that at all because I've been through this and I've also coached stepmoms through this. It's not that they're pulling away because they hate you as a stepmom. Yes, there may be some validity to that, but also as a teenager, that's what they start to do, right? Maybe your stepkids recently gotten a job, maybe they've gotten their license, maybe they're playing sports, maybe they're hanging out with their friends. And it feels like sometimes that they're doing those things to avoid you. They're not doing those things to avoid you. They're trying to figure out their own independence and trying to figure out themselves aside from how they fit into your family. And so they're trying to like make a name for themselves, if you will. But if you've got a little kid and I would say like a younger step kid, maybe like under the age of 10, I actually, you know what, any age of kids, you don't realize how many times, if you're coming, how many times you're going to have to tell them to do something over and over and over and over and over again, especially if you're coming into the situation without any kids of your own. I came in at 26 years old without kids of my own. And I was like, my God, how many times do I have to tell you the exact same thing? Right. Like I felt like I would get better results just bashing my head against a wall. At least I was getting somewhere and doing something. But like, telling them, my stepkids, the same thing over and over again. I'm like, are you even listening to me? Do you even hear what's happening? What I'm saying? Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? But now I've got my own daughter, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot of behaviors that she also has that she exhibits that my stepkids had and they exhibited. And I would be all bent out of shape about them because, of course, they were acting like that because I'm the stepmom. Where with her, I'm not like, oh, of course she's acting like that because I'm her stepmom. No, I'm her mom. Kids just act like that. That's what they're doing. So back to like testing boundaries, kids want to know like what they're going to be able to get away with or how far they can push the envelope, if you will. And so consistency and follow through are going to be your friends here. And if you are not consistent and you don't follow through, girlfriend, it is going to be a challenge because you want to set healthy boundaries and you want to establish what is or what isn't behavior that you would like or acceptable behavior for your house, right? And maybe what is allowed or not allowed at your house is very different from what's allowed and not allowed at the other house. That's okay. So, parallel parenting, that's what parallel parenting is, like your house, your rules, their house, their rules. And I will say this, it sounds scary. It sounds weird, crazy, maybe to set up house expectations for your house because you may think like everyone knows what they should be doing, right? Of course, everyone knows like you should just pick up your stuff or whatever it is that's important to you. However, you are in a family now that's kind of built out of a breakup. Like you came in and like the family there was already a divorce or there was already a breakup. And so now you're coming in and you're trying to assert yourself and your traditions or what you think should be. And they already have their traditions and how they think a family should be ran, right? Like that's how their parents did it. So now you're coming in and you're like, what is going on? Like who's supposed to be doing what? They're also thinking that like what's going on and who's supposed to be doing what? Because if the stepmom is here, maybe this is true for your situation. If she's here, I get in trouble for things. If she's not here, I don't get into trouble things. So I don't really know what's going on or I don't really know where I stand. So here's where house expectations come in. It puts everyone on the same playing field. You, your partner, the kids, everyone knows where they stand. Everyone knows what's expected of them. And once that's laid out and once that's clear, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for everyone, right? But everyone knows where they stand. Like, okay, I know that after dinner, I'm supposed to clear my plate. After breakfast, I'm supposed to brush my teeth. You know, before bed, I brush my teeth or whatever it looks like to you. I will tell you less is definitely more. Less is definitely more. And don't do what I did. Don't memorize your house expectations. You know, we had 7 of them and I'd be like, well, number 4 says, don't do that. Please don't do that. So, and here's how you can kind of navigate this without losing your cool because Trust me, just because you have house expectations doesn't mean that everything's going to go perfectly when you think that it's going to go perfectly. It's not like snap your fingers and like, okay, we've got house expectations. Everything's going to be amazing. No, because they're still kids, right? And so everyone needs to adapt into this new normal. You need to, your partner needs to, the stepkids need to. I will tell you more than anything, if you guys do set up house expectations, you are probably the person that's the most gung ho about them and the most excited for them. Everyone else probably isn't. So when you start to feel your blood boil because no one's doing what they're supposed to be doing, what you can do is take a deep breath in through your nose, smell the flowers, out through your mouth, blow out the candles, right? In through your nose, out through your mouth. But just remember, everyone is still learning. Everyone is still adjusting to this new set of expectations. And just to clarify, we did house expectations instead of house rules because house expectations sound better than rules. Like for me, you're going to set a rule, like I'm probably going to try and break it. Like that's just kind of like my thing. But if you're setting an expectation of me, it's like, oh, okay, you want me to perform? Like, okay, let me show you like how good I am at this and I will absolutely perform. So that's why we went with house expectations. But to not lose your cool, again, deep breaths, know that everyone is on their own learning journey as well, their own adapting journey. Give everyone a little bit of grace. Maybe before, when their parents were still together, maybe the mom took over or did a lot of the things and the dad didn't. Or now maybe the dad's doing a lot of the things and you're not. And so just everything looks different. There's still a lot of transition going on, but hold space for your stepkids struggling with that part of it too, because sometimes there are lingering underlying emotions that are still bubbling up for them, but they don't necessarily feel like they have got an outlet. Another thing to do, please, 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 please hear me when I say this. Make sure that you take time for you, because if you are constantly wrapped up in stepmom stressors, you are not going to be in any shape to be a good stepmom, to show up in a good way. You're going to be frazzled, burnt out, frustrated, resentful, overwhelmed with all of the things. But if you go and spend the time having dinner or getting lunch with a friend or whatever that is, like getting a workout in, going and gardening, sitting down and taking 30 minutes a day to read, doing something that you want to do, which is not scrolling on social media, but taking the time to do something that you want to do, you're going to come back and be that much more refreshed and ready to go and just take things on. And having said that, let's talk a little bit about being empathetic versus being just a doormat. So you need to find that sweet spot between understanding their feelings and not letting them walk all over you, right? Like if they, so going back to the whole, they might have big emotions about like blended families or like the divorce or whatever that is. It's okay for you to sit there and hold space for them and just empathize with them. Like, I know it sucks that your parents are divorced, even though you might be like, I'm so glad they're divorced because I'm here and all that. Like, it sucks that your parents are divorced. Yeah. And it sucks that they have to go back and forth between houses. And it sucks that they're living out of a basket or a suitcase or their backpack, on those weeks, depending on what your custody schedule is. That sucks. Or maybe they don't see their mom or they don't see their dad or they don't see one of their parents as much as they would like. That sucks. There's a good chance that they're going to be sad about that. You can hold space for them and just know that, again, I could be sitting in your exact position, holding their hand, snuggling them, wiping away their tears because they're sad about that. It's not you, it's them. Now, how do you get that to not be them walking all over you because you're a doormat? Again, the expectations. So we did expectations and everyone agreed to them. We sat down as a family. I thought I was going to puke, but we did it. I got through. I didn't puke, but I definitely felt like it and got buy-in from the kids. Hey, do you guys agree with this? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Especially about like curfew stuff, like once they were older, like what time do you think you should be in? How much time do you think you should have for screen time? Just asking them the questions, letting them have buy-in because then they're more likely to do it, right? Like if somebody were to say, hey, Alicia, we're going to do this. Do you want to come with us? And what do you want to do on this trip? I'm going to say, oh, I would like to do X, Y, and Z. But if you're going to be like, we're doing this, I don't really like that. Like I would like to have an input, right? Like the kids also would like to have an input. But it's when you find yourself doing their chores for them because you feel bad that their parents are divorced. A lot of people have divorced parents. I have divorced parents. There are so many people I know that have divorced parents. There's a lot of my daughter's friends that have divorced parents. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. That's society that we live in, and we can't use that as a crutch. So just be mindful of not picking up the slack or coddling your stepkids, so to speak, because their parents are divorced. And going back to that self-care for the defeated stepmom, like you're listening to this and you're still feeling like, but I'm still so defeated. Just know that just because you feel like a failure, because you feel defeated, doesn't mean that you are a failure. And feeling like you've sorry, words are hard today. Feeling like you've been ran over by the stepkid train doesn't mean that you suck at this. It just means that you're human. There are going to be very hard days as a stepmom. There are going to be challenges that you didn't think that you were going to have. There are going to be wins that you didn't think that you were going to have. Just know that you've survived 100% of your worst days. Tomorrow is a brand new day. Tomorrow we get to start over. Tomorrow, everyone hopefully gets a clean slate. Not to say that there aren't lingering feelings, but again, take time for you. Make sure that you get to recharge and do all of the things that you want to do. Find a place where you can vent. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe you have a community. Like I have the stepmom side community. You're more than welcome to come join that and find other stepmoms that can relate to what you're going through and understand what it's like to not be liked by their stepkids or possibly not even like their own stepkids. But there are stories in there like where sometimes it's just venting, sometimes it's I just need to get this off my chest into people that understand what I'm going through. And then also there's stepmom success stories in there, like stepmom wins. And I just want you to know this. You're doing better than you think. And sometimes the only person that needs to give you a break is you. This is probably the first time that you've ever been a stepmom. And if you're not, kudos to you for trying it out again. But give yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of compassion because we don't always get things right on the first time. For whatever reason, we feel like we should, but we don't. And if you were talking to a friend that's going through what you're going through right now, what would you say to her? Or what would you say to that friend? Would you say, well, you suck? Of course, your stepkids don't like you because you are insert whatever it is that you say to yourself. No, of course you wouldn't say that. So give yourself a little bit of grace to feel your feelings, understand that you're struggling. And if you have that perfectionism tendency, hey girl, I see you, I get it, like same here. But once you can decide, like, you know what, I'm not going to let this keep me down forever. Like there are going to be hard times. Alicia said there was going to be hard times. She also said there was going to be good times too. Like I'm going to look for those. What you think about, you bring about. I 100% totally believe that. If you are constantly thinking in the negative, guess what's going to happen to you? All of the negative things. Guess what you're going to see? All of the negative things. So try to just breathe. Think about and it sounds super crazy and you're like, whatever, Alicia. Think about the positive things. Think about the things that are going right in your life because respect will come. And let's talk about a few tips on how to build respect. Here's the thing. Slow and steady wins the race. If you're multitasking, please come back to me. Slow and steady wins the race. And when you're trying to build a relationship with your stepkid, it is a marathon. I know you've heard me say this before. Play the long game. And it's not a sprint, or in some cases, it's not a treadmill that never stops. It is something that we're going to be building long term. And a lot of people say, like, all I have to do is make it until they're 18 and they're out of the house. Okay, once they're 18 and they're out of the house, do you never expect to talk to them again? Do you never expect to see them again, hear from them again? Because um, there's a good chance that there's going to be some sort of interaction after the kids turn 18. But we're working on how to build that relationship with them while they're in the house. So when they're 18, hopefully, they'll want to come back and have a relationship with you and their partner. I mean, not their partner, but their parent that's in your house. Here's what happens when building a relationship with them and some respect for them. A lot of times kids want to know that you see them. You see them as who they are and not who you want them to be, right? And that's a lot of hangups that I see with stepmoms. I did this too. Like I wanted my stepkids to be X, Y, and Z because that's what I wanted them to be, and not really necessarily seeing them or accepting them for who they actually were. Very different kids, very different personalities. And once I could say, okay, this one is like this, and that one is like that, that's how they are, full stop. I can either fight that and try to mold them into who I want them to be, or I can say, you know what, this one's like this. I know that these are parts of their personalities that I have challenges with. That's just what the situation is. So just go in, see them as a kid, take interest in what they've got going on. What sports are they playing? What job do they have? What crafts are they interested? If you've got younger ones, what books are they reading? What about them? What do they like? What do they not like? What's their favorite ice cream? What's their favorite book to read? What's their favorite craft? What's their favorite story? Do they have any imaginary friends? What do they call their stuffed animals? Like, there are so many ways for you to connect with your stepkids. And then here's the caveat to that, though. We talked about this a little bit ago, but you have got to be consistent because if you show up this week and you're like, okay, this week I'm going to show up and I'm going to do all the things. And then the next week or the next time that you guys are together, you don't do anything. That kid, your stepkid, is like, what is going on? One week Alicia was like all about me, and then this week she's like, yeah, I don't think so. Very distant, very cold. You've got to remain consistent. Again, if you're trying to get them to do something, you have expectations, you've got to be consistent, right? Same thing with you showing up for them. There's got to be consistency. And consistency doesn't mean that you constantly do everything even though you don't want to do it. It's okay for you, age appropriately, of course, to say, hey, you know what? I am struggling this week. Like today, I'm having a hard time because of insert whatever. Or, you know what? I can't make it to your game this week because of insert whatever. I've got whatever it is going on that's going on. It's okay for you to communicate your feelings to them. You too are an adult. You too are a human. You too have feelings. So I don't want you to just think that I'm saying completely shove aside everything that you want to do to make sure that you're consistently showing up for them and doing all of the things. You get to be you too, but be consistent. Show up even if you feel like it's completely pointless, like they don't even expect or they don't even want me to be there. I will tell you, sometimes your stepkids want you to be there, but maybe they're caught in a loyalty bind with their other parent and they don't feel comfortable telling you that. But here's the thing, you want to go through your life being able to look back and be like, you know what, I did the right thing given the circumstance at that time and day. I did the right thing and I can sleep well at night knowing that I'm a good person because I've done the right thing. I will tell you now, I am not sitting here on my high horse saying, oh, I always did the right thing. I absolutely 100% did not always do the right thing. I've made mistakes. I've had to go back and be like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry I did X, Y, and Z. I was having a hard time, I was struggling, or whatever the case may be. But just be mindful of looking back on your own life. If you are trying to decide whether or not to do something and you're like, oh, I don't want to do it just because I don't like her or him or whatever it is, I hear you and I understand that. But long term, like, what is your game plan? Like, zoom out. Long term, what is your game plan? And how can if your end goal is to have a good relationship with your stepkids, are you doing today all of the things that you need to do to make it to having a good relationship with your stepkid or stepkids? If not, we need to make some adjustments. But also like create small positive moments. I had talked about maybe you guys could watch a movie together, you could do crafts, maybe you could read a book together, you could go out for ice cream together, maybe you just go for a walk together. If you've got a dog or pets that you walk, like you could take them out for a walk, or you could feed them together, you could cook together, you can wash dishes together. And if you've got young stepkids, you're like, there's no way I want to wash dishes with my little stepkid. I will tell you this, I have a young daughter, she's 5. When we wash dishes together, I allot that time is going to be a lot longer than I think. There's probably going to be bubbles everywhere. There's probably going to be a water splashed at me or sprayed at me. Is it what I want from when I'm washing dishes? Absolutely not. However, it is going to be fun. There are times that I've baked with my stepkids, my stepdaughter and my stepson, and it's been messier than I wanted it to be. I've been the one cleaning up the giant mess, and I've just been like, you know what? I'm going to clean this up. It's been fun decorating with you, but I'll go ahead and clean it up. You can go take your Valentine cupcakes to whoever it is that you want to take them to, or you can take your Christmas cookies, back to your mom's house or to your grandparents or your friends or whoever you want to take them to. Sometimes for me, it's just the fun of like having fun with them. I'm willing to do the heavy lifting part because I know longevity, like longevity wise, like I want to have a good relationship with them. Not to say that I've never not had them help me clean up because I absolutely have had them help clean up. But there have been stepmoms that I've coached that like they don't want to go to their game, to the stepkids game because they're struggling with them that week, or they don't even want their stepkids to come over because they're having a hard time, or they know that their stepkids repeat everything back to the other house, or they don't want the stepkids to come over because they know the stepkid has said, I actually don't like you. I don't want to be here because of you. I don't want to come here because of you. And so if you're struggling with your stepkid not liking you, please know that it is completely, completely normal if your stepkid doesn't like you. Just like there's an insane amount of pressure on you as the stepmom to like them, there's pressure on them to like you, or they feel like there's pressure on them to like you. But just it's relatable. Like your stepkid's not liking you is completely relatable. Like it's nothing crazy. And again, it's nothing personal. So just remember, Rome was not built in a day, and neither is a relationship with your stepkid. And some days Rome burned to the ground. So, it's all about perspective. Just know sometimes it takes like 30 steps forward and 20 steps back. It's still progress, right? Like you have like the difference is 10 steps forward, but like sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. Sometimes you feel like you're winning and sometimes you feel like you're not. Relationships ebb and flow. I say this a lot, like relationships ebb and flow. Sometimes it's really great and sometimes it's not really great, but it's okay. And the next podcast we're going to talk about is when your partner's ex is always around. I feel like that's pretty relatable, right? Or when she's always in the picture. So if you've listened to this and you've gotten something really good out of it, great. Thank you so much. If you could leave a rating and a review, and if you want to share your stories, you can just send me a message at Alicia Crosco on Instagram. Like, oh my gosh, you know what? I listened to podcast episode number 62 and I really related to that. Here's my story. And if you want more of like a community feel or you want like more support, come join us inside the Stepmom Side community. We've all been there and you don't have to do it alone. Like we're all in this for you. But until next time, keep your sanity intact, your boundaries strong, and your glass of wine full if you drink a glass of wine, or make sure that you get like your workout in. But I will chat with you next week. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crosco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.